Okay, well, welcome everybody. I'm Jonathan Stevens, Regional Director of Finance for the Northwest for NHS EI. And Natasha, do you want to shout out?
Hi everyone, I'm Natasha Monroe. I've actually moved roles, so I'm now Senior Finance Manager with the London Region NHS EI.
Great, thanks Natasha. Yes, I've not got a fancy background on. I am actually in my daughter's bedroom as and have been for several months now. Okay, over to the sponsorship program. So you want to move on to slide 2, Megan. So the history of this, this was set up, I would say, just over 2 years ago now. Initially, the sort of focus was on BAME, but has widened out to gender, LGBTQ plus community, which is what we're here to talk about today as part of the conference, but also disability as well. And the objective here is, to get better representation from the different diverse backgrounds of our staff and our populations at leadership levels. I always say, if you're to stand up at a national conference of directors of finance and CFOs, you'd see an awful lot of white middle-aged blokes and not a true representation of our workforce or our population. So we really do want to get better representation in those leadership positions, but also across all of our grades, because it's important we have a vibrant pipeline to make sure there's a succession plan and good diversity across all of our staffing groups, but ultimately our leadership positions. So that's it's been set up for about 2 and a bit years ago. Natasha has been on the programme for 2 years as my sponsor, and I'm her sponsor. And the key is this for people who have been in the NHS for 2 to 3 years, so it's not restricted to any band level. The quoting 2 to 3 years is just so you've had a chance to find your feet in the NHS and sort of figured out, what you think your next step might be, or actually ready for your next step. And it's for people who aspire to progress in their finance career. So this is really aimed at helping individuals think about their next step, and a sponsor supporting them to achieve that. Next slide, please. The role of a sponsor. So this is different. People say, oh, is this the same as mentoring? One of our sponsees mentioned it to me recently, says, oh no, this is like mentorship plus, which is actually a good way of describing it. But this is an active role as a sponsor. So I'm not there just to sort of listen to Natasha, talk about how work's going and that sort of thing, give a bit of advice, and then we sort of catch up 3 months later. My role is to really act as a promoter of Natasha, helping Natasha, think about her next career step, exposing her to experiences, connecting with other senior leaders in the patch, helping Natasha get a profile up, identifying and supporting, where skills are needed to progress, and getting exposure to then development opportunities. And Natasha will talk about the sort of things that she's done as part of our sponsorship relationship over the last couple of years. And then helping, your sponsee think about career choices and what the opportunities and options are, and being there as an advocate and a support for the sponsee, in my case, Natasha, on any issues regarding their career promotion, blockages that, I can be helpful of, and sort of using my experience over my sort of working career to reflect on, to support Natasha in progressing, with my ultimate objective is helping the sponsee grow and develop, but also supporting them in getting the next job that they would like to aspire to in terms of promotion and progression, wherever that might be in the NHS. So that's what the role is. So it's an active role, not a passive one. And when I meet with the sponsee, we make sure there's actions on both sides. So we leave the meeting with things to do and things to progress. So it's practical and helpful, not just discussive, as it were. Next slide, please. And again, this is it's trustworthy and loyal and discreet. Anything that Natasha mentions to me is between myself and Natasha, and identifying opportunities. I've said new opportunities for the sponsee to develop and get exposure, so they're in the best place for the next career step that they've identified. You've helped them as a sponsor get those skills to get their foot in the door, get an interview, and hopefully get that that ultimate promotion, but also supporting the individual get a more rounded development in terms of their confidence, exposure to other colleagues, establishing networks, getting involved in things they might never have done, which will help them get their profile raised and understand other aspects of the NHS they might not be exposed to get further clarity about the next career step that they would like to make. Next slide, please. Just to give you a sense of numbers, the numbers have grown nationally. Natasha was one of the first sponsees on the programme, and as part of the sponsees has helped me and the sponsorship programme develop and refine its approach, etc. But you can see there we've got good total representation. Now we had a handful of sponsees when we first started, and now we've got 132 across the country. 174 sponsors, so there's clearly more sponsors than sponsees, which is on the one hand good, but on the other hand it'd be good to get more sponsees. And if you look at the distribution, you can see in terms of London and the Northwest leading the way in attracting people into this programme, and clearly we need to do a bit more in some of the other patches in terms of creating awareness, which is what we're here to do today as well, about the benefits of this programme, to see whether or not it's right for you and something to consider. So, Southwest, we're sort of setting up some sort of promotional awareness raising sessions there, so staff can be more aware about what this programme offers and decide whether that is something they would like to get involved in. So good in total, but a bit disparate in terms of distribution around the country, but good progress in the Northwest and London. Northwest, where I'm from, and London from where Natasha's from. Also getting good movement in North East and Yorkshire now in terms of their promotion of this particular programme. Next slide, please. In terms of the development, so whilst there's the one-to-one development between sponsor and sponsee, working with the sponsees and working with other senior colleagues in finance, we do have now 2 thriving sponsee networks in London and the Northwest, and others are starting to set up. Which is really good, because that's a group of individuals who are all on a progression, can sort of bounce ideas off colleagues, but also they act as a sort of a reverse mentoring to people like myself. So have really helped the sponsee networks in terms of developing the programme and also advising us on the wider aspects of equality, diversity and inclusion work, and how we approach training and development, not just in the Northwest, but across the country. So those 2 thriving networks are really good, and they're chaired by sponsees themselves, which is good. We've got a working group of sponsees, and some of the things we've now been working on is how we measure success of the programme. Now we're a couple of years in, so that's not just the hard metrics of did I go, get a promotion or a job change, but also some of the softer stuff about confidence, exposure, profile, and those sorts of things, which the sponsees talked very confidently about being just as important as a sort of the career progress bit. So we're going to set up some annual surveys and get some data collection so we can see the distribution of our sponsees and from the various protected characteristics, so we can make sure we're supporting our staff and getting the right pipeline, if you like, through to our leadership positions. We've obviously got today's event. We've had similar events. We had a national sponsorship program conference in January, and the likes of Natasha were involved in that, which went very well. And one of the things we're also looking at is some of the things around disability, which is also an issue in terms of supporting staff, but also looking at this concept of sponsee job swaps and secondments. So now we've got a critical mass of sponsees. It's probably an easier opportunity now to enable folk to get experience to help prepare them for new jobs by doing swaps. So, for example, Natasha would like experience in, Sector A, and one of the sponsee colleagues in Sector A would like experience in Natasha's. We could now arrange a sort of a sponsorship swap, given it's backed by a sponsor, which means both employees don't lose out, and they've got an individual that's keen to grow and develop. So that's one thing I'm looking at now, because that was one of the barriers a lot of folks say in terms of career progression is they go for an interview, they get fantastic feedback, but unfortunately, Joe or Suzanne or wherever got the job because they were already working in that sector and had experience. So this might be one way of us spreading that experience so that doesn't become a barrier to progression. Next slide, please. And some of our successes to date, a number of our sponsees, and Natasha included, have got promotions to new jobs. We've got, sponsees leading groups and coming on events like this, and, we're talking very confident and articulately about the benefits in their career and that sort of thing. It's becoming much more well recognised. As you can see, the numbers have gone up from a handful, I'd say, a year ago to, over 100 now nationally. We've updated the framework to make it more supportive to sponsees and sponsors for that matter. So we've got new training materials and things like that. And also we're using the sponsee network to support various EDI work streams we've got in the North and London. We've got things like we've updated the accreditation for finance staff development. So we've got requirements in those accreditation expectations around EDI and the sponsorship program, and that's at level 1 through to level 3. I thought it was important that this is an absolute must do at level 1, which is good. And several of our as I said, sponsees have delivered speeches and talks at some national meetings, HFMA, etc., which has been good for them. Next slide. Next slide. So that's the end of the slide. So I was going to hand over to Natasha to sort of talk about her experience, because I think that will be good to see, hear from a sponsee's perspective rather than just a sponsor or someone like myself who's, sort of leading the program. So over to you, Natasha.
Hi again, everyone. So I'll just talk about my own experience of the program. So I joined the program just over 2 years ago, and I was at a point in my career where I was starting to think about what my next steps should be in order to progress to the next level, but also thinking about where I want my career to go, the skills I would need, the support I would need, the network I would need to build. So I went to the FFF website to see whether there was any support, and many of the programs are really geared and focused on the higher bandings. So I think most of the programs start off with 8B. There weren't that many programs, if at all, any programs for anyone in finance below an 8B. So that's where I found the sponsorship program. I contacted the FFF team to find out whether we had any sponsors in my organization, and they then let me know that they would find out and put me into contact with someone within the organization. I then heard from our then PA of our CFO a few weeks later to let me know that there was a potential sponsor. I didn't know Jonathan, and Jonathan didn't know me. We were complete strangers. We'd not come across each other at all. He's based in Manchester. I'm based in London. So I was really nervous and very apprehensive. I prepared myself as if I was going for an interview, because I thought it would be like a job interview. And also our first meeting was a virtual meeting. But very quickly, Jonathan put me at ease. It was really easy to talk to. And I felt very relaxed, and it didn't feel like an interview. So I talked about my career and up to the point that I was and the experience I'd had. Jonathan did the same. He shared his career and his experience and how he got to the point that he was. I talked about why I thought the sponsorship program would be good for me and some of the support I think I could gain from it. And he also talked about why he was interested in joining the program. And I think one of the things that also convinced me that I should give Jonathan a chance was that I felt that he wasn't afraid of approaching difficult topics or conversations, because he asked me whether I've ever felt that due to my race or my gender that I lost out on a promotion or a specific project because of that. So I shared some of what I thought, and I also shared some of the experiences of my colleagues, whether it was direct experience, very blatant racism that they've experienced, or some more subtle racism that they've experienced. So I felt very at ease that he felt comfortable to raise a topic like that. So we decided that we would go ahead, and I know It's not the same for every sponsee and sponsor. So you might have your first meeting and you might feel, actually, no, I don't think I could trust this person, so which is absolutely fine, because you have to feel comfortable with, for me, with your sponsor, or your sponsor needs to feel comfortable that they can champion you as a sponsee. So it's absolutely fine if you think that you don't click. It might take a few meetings, it might take your first meeting, but we decided that we would go ahead and give it a go. Because it was so new, we decided to meet every month, up to an hour, whether it was virtual, in person, or on the phone. Like Jonathan said, we would take actions from every single meeting. The actions would have to be completed either by the next meeting, or if it's a longer term action or task, we would check in just to let each other know how we were getting on with things. So that's how we started. We also, at that point, we had what was called a sponsorship guardian, which is basically someone who is outside of the sponsorship relationship, who will sort of check in with us every 6 months or a year, just to see how things are going, how things are progressing, what the relationship was like. I might have an issue with Jonathan, or Jonathan might have an issue with me, and the guardian would sort of step in and deal with that. But we've not actually needed the guardian at all. I think we felt comfortable enough to approach whatever issue or problem that we had with each other, which was really good. So I went into the program thinking probably mostly about, okay, what's my next step within my current organization? What do I need to do in order to get that next promotion? I think that was probably my mindset that I went into it. And Jonathan very quickly challenged me in my thinking when he asked me, well, why are you only thinking about your current organization? Because there are so many different types of finance roles, in the broader NHS, whether it's a trust or a CCG or even another arm's length NHS body. Why are you not thinking about that? Why are you limiting yourself to where you currently are? So that was really good and really challenging. And some of the experience that came from that was Jonathan very kindly set me up with CFOs and DOFs of both trusts and CCGs, both male and female, where he contacted them, introduced me to them, which I think my idea was, oh, can I do it via LinkedIn? And I very quickly said, no, that's a bad idea. Don't contact the CFO via LinkedIn. I'll do that for you. So he put me into contact with trust CFOs and DOFs, introduced me to them, and also told them why I would be interested in shadowing them, as well as attend some of their senior meetings. So that was really good. So Jonathan introduced me, let them know who I was, why I was doing it. And then I sort of stepped in and we had, I think for most of them, I had an initial conversation with them to introduce myself and also to talk to them about what I was hoping to gain from it. So I had great experiences where I shadowed CFOs and DOFs for probably not multiple days actually, where they very kindly allowed me, to sit in on their board meetings, to sit in on their senior meetings, so I could see the behaviors being exhibited, the types of things that were being discussed, all confidential. Obviously, I didn't share with anyone outside of those meetings. I had the amazing experience of actually, speaking to them on a one-to-one basis, so they could share their career experiences and any challenges they had, getting to the point they were, the support they had, the people who were backing them, the networks that they built, the importance of networks as you progress within your career. I shadowed a CFO in Manchester who's female, and she talked about not just her role and her experience, was also the impact of being female, as well as, having kids, which was really good because I have a daughter. So it was really good to have that perspective as well. So I'm really grateful for that. So that's some of the experience I've had. I currently, I chair the national sponsee group. And like Jonathan said, we started off with about probably between 5 to 10 sponsees at the start. and we're more than 100 sponsees at the minute, and that's across England. So I chair the sponsee network, and we meet regularly every 3 months. The regional groups are chaired by sponsees as well, and those groups meet more regularly. So those groups meet every month. And like Jonathan said, the representation within regions varies. So within London, we've got quite a good big group, the Northwest the same, but there's some more work that needs to be done in some of the other regions, and some support that needs to happen in those regions. So I've personally gained confidence because Jonathan's constantly pushing me and challenging me, because I think probably 2 years ago I would never have done this. I've presented at quite a few, I think HFMA, I've presented at FFF events as well. 2 years ago, no, I would not do it. But Jonathan is constantly challenging me. Why not? If you don't put yourself out there, how will you gain the experience in order to speak up, within senior meetings, or speak up when you see something that's wrong? So Jonathan's been really good with that. My confidence grown. I've met a great group of colleagues that I would never have met because of geography. Because I'm based in London, I don't think I would have met the many sponsees in the Northwest that I now call colleagues as well as friends. I wouldn't have had that opportunity. We meet, we share our experiences. We are a good group where we are bouncing ideas off of each other. We talk about how we can improve the program. We also, for example, at the start, I was sharing how I was doing shadowing, and some of the other sponsees were like, oh, okay, I didn't know I could do that. That's really great. I can take that back to my sponsor and ask him how he can help me to set up some shadowing days, or how he can help me in, presenting at board level. Jonathan's helped me with, currently I'm on secondment, so Jonathan's helped me in the past with job applications, where I've shared job specs with him, and he's gone through the job specs, compared it to my application, and advised me on how to tweak things so it stands out, how to present myself when I'm being interviewed, the types of questions I might be asked. So the type of support that your sponsor gives you depends on where you are, I would say, in your career, and what type of support you need. So that's the type of support I was after. So it's a really good program, and I've gained so much from when I've started, and I'm sure Jonathan will say that my confidence, you can see my confidence has grown from when I started off with him. And our relationship, I would say, is slightly changed because I've now moved on to a new role. So rather than being a sponsor, it's more a mentor type role. And I know some of the other sponsees, when they joined the program, they started off as mentor-mentee because they had just started a new role, and they've now moved on to the sponsee and sponsor relationship. What I would say is that for anyone who's interested in signing up, the sponsees are more than happy to, have a one-to-one conversation with you. More than happy to share our experiences, but I would just say that this is not a golden ticket. It's not you're signing up today, in the next 3 months you'll walk into a new role. Great if that happens, and I know some of the sponsors have had that experience, but I would say that that is probably not going to happen. And it's a gradual process. You'll learn so much more from your sponsor, because it is a senior person. You'll learn from their career and the challenges they've gone through, and how some of the pitfalls that they've sort of fallen into, how you can avoid those. So I would say, anyone interested, please do join. We are a very good, supportive group. You will find someone who have a very similar experience to you, and someone who, if you've got a good sponsor, you have really good support from your sponsor, but you'll also have very good support from the current sponsees as colleagues, as well as hopefully friends at the end. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Natasha. I have to say we've gone over a few minutes, but actually just hearing you talk is probably best effort for this program. Clearly, you're getting so much out of it. Just a very quick comment I'm going to make just before we get into the questions. Just looking at the stats there and seeing that there's more sponsors than there is sponsees. This is talking from somebody who is a sponsor, doesn't have a sponsee. I think senior staff and senior colleagues really see the importance of this programme. I certainly do, and I'll really chomping at the bit, if you like, to get involved. So sponsees out there, don't be shy, come forward. It really is. And Natasha, thank you so much for that. That was so helpful. And if that doesn't get people signing up, I don't know what will. So just a couple of questions I suppose for you, Jonathan. Actually,
yeah.
So do you need to sign off from your manager to sign up?
I don't think you need formal sign-off, do you, Natasha, at all? I
No,
mean,
you don't. But I would say it would be a good idea to have your line manager on side, because I've built the sponsee program into my own PDP. So I do talk to my line manager about what I'm doing on the program, so that does feed into my current role. So I would say you don't need your line manager, but it would be good to have your have manager support.
Yeah, because I think it's important for your line manager in the context of why you're doing it and that sort of thing. But your sponsor doesn't have to be a line manager, and in most cases it's sensible it's not, to be honest.
No, thank you. Yeah, and I suppose the $1 million question: how do you sign up to the program?
Now there's the FFF link, isn't there? So I don't know whether it could be sent out to people who've by Megan, after the session, so they can click on and go through to the link on the FFF website, and all the documentation that talks about the program and how to apply is on there. It's quite easy to do.
Lovely. What happens after the 2 years?
I mean, the 2 years was set as a sort of, I mean, it's not fixed. So to be honest, Natasha and I's probably gone over 2 years now, hasn't it? And I guess it depends for the individuals. For some, you could say, well, it can carry on for more years if the individual wants to, and the sponsor. So I certainly support Natasha longer. So I think Natasha talks about a journey. So 2 years is to give some focus. Otherwise, it could be like, ever ending, and there's no focus to achieving something. But beyond then, both parties can of course continue.
Yeah.
Great.
And it could be that you get to the end of the 2 years, you've gained what you wanted to gain, and now you can move on.
Yeah.
Or you could be, for example, with me or with some of the other sponsors, they've now moved on to a new role, and they feel that actually now I need a different type of sponsor. And that's very possible. You can move on, but like with Jonathan and I mean, I think our relationship was different to what it started off with, and we'll just see how it goes.
Great stuff. Okay, lovely. Is there a way of finding out the sponsors in a specific region? Is there?
Yeah. So I have a list of them all. I have to list them all nationally, actually, but also regionally. So you can then sort of, you might want to pick some sponsor in a particular sector, because that's where you want to get a different perspective and support. So yeah, there's a way of getting advice on what might be the best sponsor for you. Obviously, it's ultimately down to relationships as well and individuals, but in terms of the list, we've got a full list of all those.
Oh, that's great. I guess at the moment things are sort of online rather than face to face, but you see that changing in future? Or
I mean, we did meet face to face, didn't we, Natasha? Because I often have meetings in London, and we may take time to meet face to face. In some respects, this technology has enabled us to meet a lot more frequently, because you're not having to organise and time diaries. But I think once we get into the assuming things get better post June, the odd face to face I think will be good. We certainly do that. But it's not absolutely essential with this technology, as long as you can get the support you need from that individual.
Exactly.
So I suppose, I'm firing these questions to both of you, really, so you can answer whatever you like. It's working quite well, isn't it? I suppose this one is particularly for you, Jonathan, really. What have you gained from the programme and sponsoring Natasha?
Oh, I mean, personally, I get a massive amount of pleasure out of seeing Natasha grow as an individual, and you know, her getting a new job is like a celebration for me. But also, as Natasha said, you know, if I think when we first met 2 years ago, how confident she is and how self-assured, and so that's a big plus for me. You know, I think the sort of job I do is probably one of the nicest things I do in my job. But also the other thing is the amount of sort of information I get from Natasha in that sort of reverse mentoring. And it's one thing me saying I know I really support passionately, you know, diversity and inclusion, but I am a white bloke, as you've all probably noticed, and getting on a bit. So it's important for me to hear from the perspective of people who are, you know, whether they're BAME, you know, a woman, a lesbian, trans, or whatever, because you can only understand from their perspective as much as I know, don't I? So for me, it's getting that true feedback about what we need to do in terms of developing our approaches to inclusivity and promoting diversity in terms of our strategies for training and development, both nationally and locally. So there's that sort of feedback stuff, which is important for me, but also the genuine success of the individual growing and getting something out of it. You know, that's the ultimate test of this for me.